You new Dallas fans and niggas, y'all gonna block me today. Yeah, y'all gonna block me today. Montana 700 fans, y'all bitch ass niggas gonna block me today. Check this out. Man, I'm just seeing the post that a nigga made about Lil Bro. No. We ain't finna do that, say thug. I don't know what's going on with the internet, just popping they shit about him. Y'all ain't been playing with him, don't start playing with him. I don't know what's going on with y'all. Just cause Lil Bro on tour, that don't mean things changed up around this. Niggas still got structure going on, so I don't know what the f going on. Montana hollering about, oh, you should've listened to that nigga and listened to that. As nigga, you could go be with that nigga. Wrong with a nigga, man. You know, we still putting shit up for cuz, man. Ain't nothing safe.
It looks like the Montana 700 and NBA Youngboy beef is about to get deadly. The situation has been bubbling under the surface in Dallas hip-hop, and now things just got real. Montana 700 been throwing shots at NBA Youngboy for years. We talking old clips, new disses, the whole nine. And when that content started circulating again recently, YB's side didn't take it lightly. You can't keep poking at somebody who's got the juice to respond. You gotta be ready for the response. Stay with me, fam, because things just got crazy. The real story is more calculated than the drama makes it seem, and things might just not end well. How we got here. Now, before we dive into the recent activity, let me keep it 100 with y'all about the foundation of this whole thing. Montana 700 has been in the game making noise for a minute now. But here's the situation. He's been throwing subliminal shots at NBA Youngboy on and off for years. We're talking about a pattern of content where Montana is making references, dropping bars, posting clips where he's addressing YB directly or indirectly. Most people didn't catch it at first because it wasn't always obvious, but the culture recognizes subtle disses. That's how the game works. It's coded language. It's references only certain people understand. Now, NBA Youngboy, we don't need to explain who that is. Man's one of the biggest artists coming out the South, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Got the streaming numbers that put him in conversations with the biggest names in the industry. Got a fan base that's loyal, organized, and active. Got the respect from peers and the industry machinery behind him. When you're at that level, you hear everything. Somebody dissing you in Dallas, that gets back to you within hours. It travels through the grapevine, through social media, through your circle. And here's where the dynamic matters most. Youngboy's got reach that extends beyond just music. Youngboy's got associates. Youngboy's got the kind of influence where a small disrespect can turn into something serious real quick. That's not a threat. That's just acknowledgement of how power works when you're at the top of the game. You got leverage that comes with your position. That's the chessboard we're looking at here. When old clips resurfaced. So here's where the timeline gets important, fam, because this is the real trigger. Montana's been posting these clips for a while, videos where he's talking slick about YB, making it clear he ain't got respect for the man or his movement.
Doing all type of hoe shit, nigga. G Money been said you was a hoe, nigga. Finna get on that Fredo shit, nigga. Stamp you niggas. Nah, for real.
Some of this content been sitting on the internet for a minute, just existing in the digital space. But here's what changed. Recently, these clips started making rounds again. They resurfaced. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, the whole ecosystem started circulating them, and that's the real trigger moment. It ain't always about new dices being created, you feel me? Sometimes it's about old disses getting fresh circulation. Sometimes it's about content that been dormant suddenly becoming relevant again. That's actually more powerful than new dices in some ways. New dices you can address directly, but old clips resurfacing, that's different. That suggests somebody's deliberately putting that content back out there. That suggests coordinated effort to remind people of what was said. That's strategy. Here's the real tea though. When content like that starts circulating, it forces a response from the other side. In the streets and in hip-hop, silence can look like weakness. If somebody's disrespecting you publicly and you don't address it, the narrative shifts. People start thinking you're either scared or you don't care enough to respond. Youngboy's whole brand is built on a certain level of respect and control. He's known for being somebody who handles his business. So when Montana's clips started popping up again, making waves, it became something that had to be addressed. And that's when we started seeing the checks happen. By checks, I mean associates of Youngboy's circle started confronting Montana. We're talking about clips surfacing where YB's side is making their position clear. Yo, we see what you doing. We know exactly what you're saying. That's disrespectful, and we need you to understand that. The confrontations, whether they happened in person or through social media or through word of mouth, they were calculated. They weren't emotional reactions. They were sending a message, a clear one. YB's circle makes their position clear. Now, this is where we got to talk about Lil Pap specifically, because his response is the one that really changed the temperature of this situation. For people who might not know the dynamics here, Lil Pap is tied to Youngboy's circle in ways that matter. When I say tied, I mean he's somebody who moves with YB's energy, represents that side of things, and has credibility within that space. He's not just a random person saying random things. He's somebody with history, with connections, with known affiliations. When Montana kept pushing the envelope with his disses, kept making content that was clearly directed at YB, Lil Pap responded, and he responded aggressive. But here's the important distinction I need to make crystal clear. When somebody says something like, "We still killing for Youngboy," that's not just a statement for entertainment. That's coded language within hip-hop culture, and you gotta understand what that actually means. It's not just tough talk for the camera or for social media engagement. It's a declaration of loyalty and a warning wrapped into one sentence. It's saying, this man Youngboy got soldiers. This man Youngboy got people willing to go to war for him. This man got associates who are organized and committed. If you keep disrespecting, you're going to have to answer to more than just him alone. You're going to have to answer to a collective. That statement, "They still killing for Youngboy," that's where the situation officially stopped being about rap bars and started being about something else entirely. That's where it became real enough that people in the industry started paying attention. That's where legitimate concern entered the chat, because that's not metaphorical language in that context. That's establishing boundaries. Real talk though. When you got that level of language being thrown around, we gotta be honest about what that represents. It ain't just entertainment anymore. It's an escalation that's crossed from competitive disses into territory where actual danger becomes a factor. We can pretend it's all just hype and performance, but that would be ignoring the reality of what's being communicated here. What most people miss. Now, here's what the internet and most commentary don't really break down properly, and this is crucial for understanding what's actually going on behind closed doors and beyond the public performances. See, when you got a situation like this, there's always layers. There's the public beef, the disses, the confrontations, the social media back and forth that everybody sees. But then there's what's happening in the background that most people never see or understand. Youngboy's team, they ain't just responding off emotion. They're responding strategically. Think about it logically. Youngboy got one of the biggest platforms in hip-hop right now. He could respond to Montana directly, make it a whole situation, blow it up publicly with his own voice and reach. That would get massive attention. That would escalate it immediately. But he ain't doing that. Instead, his circle is handling it through associates like Lil Pap. Why? Because that's actually more effective strategically. It shows restraint while also showing power simultaneously. It's a way of saying, we don't even need to respond directly. We got people, we got organization, we got structure. That's control. That's power being exercised without needing to personally engage. That's a calculated move that most people in the industry would recognize immediately. Montana, on the other hand, he's in a completely different position. He's building his brand off attention. He's still climbing. So when he keeps dissing Youngboy, he's getting noticed. He's getting engagement. He's getting his name in conversations with somebody way bigger than him. From a business standpoint, from a brand building standpoint, that makes sense for him. It's working to get his name out there. But from a survival standpoint, from a understanding the power dynamics standpoint, that's where the calculation gets really complicated. See, this is the thing about modern beef that people don't understand or don't want to acknowledge. It's not always about who's the best rapper or who can win a lyrical battle or who's got the sickest bars. It's about who's got the most to lose and who's willing to go the furthest. Youngboy got everything: fame, money, platform, organization, respect. He got a lot to lose. So his response is measured. It's controlled. It's strategic. Montana, he's still building. He might feel like he ain't got as much to lose, so he can take bigger risks. He can keep pushing. He can keep testing boundaries. But that's exactly the kind of thinking that gets people hurt in these situations. That's how situations escalate beyond what anybody intended. How the rest of hip-hop is watching? Real recognize real, and the industry is watching this closely. Not just because it's entertaining, but because it sets precedent. How Youngboy's team handles this situation, that sends a message to everybody else. It says, this is how we move. This is how we respond to disrespect. This is what happens if you keep pushing. Other artists in Dallas, other artists in the South, other artists, period, they're paying attention. They're seeing how this plays out. They're asking themselves, would I do the same thing Montana did? Or would I recognize the power dynamic and fall back? That's real calculus happening in the background. And here's something else. Youngboy got co-defendants, people he moved with, people connected to situations that happened in his life. When Lil Pap or anybody in that circle says, "We still killing for Youngboy," people in the know understand what that means in context. They know the history. They know what Youngboy's been through. They know what his circle is capable of. So that statement ain't just tough talk. It's a reminder of what's already been established. That's different than if some random person said it. Context matters. Who's saying it matters. Their history matters. Their credibility matters. Lil Pap got credibility in that space, which is exactly why his words carry weight. What happens next? Now, the million-dollar question everybody's asking is, where does this go? Does Montana back off? Does he keep pushing? Does something escalate that we haven't seen yet? Here's what I think based on how these situations typically play out. Montana's got a decision to make, and it ain't an easy one. If he backs off completely, people might see that as weakness. His fan base might question his authenticity. But if he keeps pushing, he's playing Russian roulette with a situation that's already been escalated by people with more power than him. That's the real trap. There ain't no good move for Montana at this point. Either way, he loses something. Youngboy's team, they already won the psychological battle. They made their point. Montana knows they're not playing. The question is whether Montana respects that enough to adjust his behavior, or whether his ego or his business strategy keeps him pushing. From a cultural standpoint, this matters because it shows how power dynamics in hip-hop work in real time. It ain't always about the best music or the most talented artist. Sometimes it's about who's got the most leverage and who's willing to use it. That's uncomfortable for a lot of people to admit, but that's the reality. The street's been talking about this for months. Everybody know what's happening. The only question is whether it stays at the confrontation level or whether somebody decides this needs to go further. And that's the thing that keeps these situations dangerous. You never know which direction it's gonna go until it goes. Bigger picture. Here's what I need to say clearly. This situation is a microcosm of how beef operates in modern hip-hop. It ain't always about one person physically doing something to another. Sometimes it's about creating an environment where the other person understands the stake. It's psychological, it's strategic. The resurfacing of old clips is smart because it's passive aggression. Montana didn't necessarily do anything new. The internet just reminded everybody of what he already said. That's different than starting fresh beef. That's manipulating narrative. Youngboy's response through his circle is also strategic. By making it clear that they still killing for him, they're establishing that this ain't just about one man. It's about a collective. It's about organization. That's more intimidating than any single threat could be. For the culture, this shows how dangerous the internet has made things. Old clips can resurface and reignite situations that might have been cooling. Content lives forever. Disrespect is documented, and responses happen fast because everybody got an audience and everybody trying to make a statement. Real recognize real though. Both sides know how this works. Montana knows what he's doing when he keeps posting shots. Youngboy's team knows how to respond without necessarily making it physical. It's a game being played by people who understand the rule. The question nobody's asking is what happens if somebody breaks those rules? What happens if this goes beyond social media and confrontation? That's when it stops being entertainment and becomes something with real consequences for real people. And that's the line we gotta be honest about. When does beef cross from being cultural expression into being actual danger? That line is blurry, and that's exactly why these situations are so volatile. The real issue. At the end of the day, what we're watching is ego, respect, and the mechanics of how power gets maintained in hip-hop culture. Montana 700 is a talented artist who's trying to build his brand, but he's doing it partially on the back of dissing somebody significantly bigger. That's a risky strategy that only works if you got leverage, and the question is, does he? Youngboy's team is making sure everybody understands the answer to that question. No. And they're doing it through a calculated combination of presence and warning. That's actually smarter than a lot of people think. But here's what I need to say clearly. When you got language about still killing for somebody being thrown around, that's when we gotta be real about the stake. This ain't just rap beef anymore. This is approaching territory where actual violence becomes a possibility, not just hype. For Montana, he gotta decide if this is worth it. For Youngboy's side, they already made their position clear. Now it's about whether they're willing to escalate if pushed further. For the rest of us watching, we gotta recognize that this is real life happening in real time. This ain't ain't a movie. This ain't a storyline on TV. This is two sides with different levels of power, different stakes, and different things to prove. How it resolves matters, not just for them, but for the culture and for how we as an audience consume this content.